Hey everybody, welcome to A Bit of Birdsong. My name is Lynn. Today I want to share with you a very simple flower drawing that I put into one of my junk journals. I just drew this little wildflower into my junk journal this morning and I love the way it turned out. So I thought I would turn the camera on and share the process with you as I try to create a few more of these. I drew this using watercolor pencils and then I stamped the word wild here. You don't have to do the stamp this time, but I do want to try to create some more of these little wildflower shapes. I think they're really pretty. I've actually got a couple of types of watercolor paper here. This is more textured. I really like this better, I think. This is a cheaper version of watercolor paper that came from 5 and Below. It's okay, I wouldn't buy it again. I feel like the paper tears up if you work on it too much. It starts to get that yucky sort of peeling away of the top layer. Let me show you how I did this though. It's really simple. I'm not great at drawing flowers, but I felt like this was a simple design that anybody could do. I'm gonna start with this black watercolor pencil. I've got some water here that's got tea in it. It's kind of a tea stain that I can use here. And I'm going to put the slightest amount on the paper to get it wet. And this is such a simple shape. We're going to do one stem and then another, maybe kind of a tall stem and a shorter one out this way. And then add just more little stems. And they don't have to be perfect. In fact, it's going to be best if they're not perfect. I don't want to get too much water in the actual pencil area because it'll run. And you'll maybe see that if I mess up and get too much in the ink itself. So I feel like that's good for right now. And what I want to do is add a little, almost like a little cross mark, like a little plate sitting on top of these stems. Now, if you had more water, that's kind of a fun effect sometimes, having the pencil a little bit wetter. It runs, you can see that. But for now, I think we're just gonna stick with maybe something that's not so out of control. The next thing that I want to do, and I think I want a different color from what's in here. There is a yellow here. Well, let me just, I know that's really bright. That's kind of pretty. I was thinking maybe a mustard color, but I don't know. Should I go with this really bright yellow? Let's look through my other watercolor pencils. I'm going to put some water out here to dip just the pencil lead into. I used to dip the whole pencil into water and somebody said you're going to end up ruining your pencils that way, and I appreciated that comment. I still sometimes dip, but I try not to get the wood in there too much. The next thing, I'm just going to make a dot of color somewhat above that little mark that we made. You can see I got too much water here, and if you need to, you can take a napkin or something and dab the excess up. Let's just finish all of these. You can make them different sizes and shapes. I mean, within reason, because, you know, flowers are not, they're perfect, but they're not perfect. The last thing I did was to take a little bit of this vintage white acrylic paint, and you're going to want a tiny little brush, and I just added a spot of white under each yellow dot. And the reason I put the yellow on first is so that the white could kind of creep up around it. And you can do different shapes and sizes with this as well. And it's okay if the white covers up, you know, part of a stem or something. Or we could make this even more detailed by adding more branches that maybe overlap other branches. Definitely want this to dry. It's subtle and it's really small, these flowers, but I think they're so adorable. Really cute. Let's try another one. I love the way these turned out. I'm not going to bore you by doing the same process again 2 more times. I do want to tell you what I ended up with though. I used different colors for each one, and you will see in the next video my reasoning for that. I repeated the same process with a black watercolor pencil. However, on this one, I got the paper wetter, and you can see that made for a thicker line because that ink spread some. The purple, I tried acrylic paint for those little dots instead of watercolor pencil. I did dry between layers because I didn't want that purple to run too much when I put the vintage white underneath it. I love all 3 of these. This one, you can see that I had a bit more running of the ink. This is actually a different kind of paper than these 2. And paper reacts differently. So it's kind of it's an experimental process when you do things like this. And I just love how we learn from things like this. You can probably see a little bit of different coloring here. And I did come in and use some of the vintage white paint to cover up where the ink was running too much. I didn't want to discard this one. I'm going to go ahead and use it because I'm going to be adding different layers for a project that I have in mind. This is definitely a simple shape and design, but I think it's going to be really pretty as we add more layers and end up using these in a special project that I'm going to be using for some gift giving. So hope you'll join me for the next video, and I'll show you what we do with these. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that you will tune in for the next video because I'm going to show you what I've done with these really sweet illustrations. Also, if you like the content, please subscribe and click the bell for notifications so that you will know when I upload a new video. Bye for now.